Alright, Elvis, if you guys don't know this guy, you're not a fan of MMA. This is for InfiniteMMA.com, which of course is the biggest site in Australian MMA. So hope you guys enjoy this. Elvis, what do you think about this rematch with Chris Hazeman?
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, just the fact that it's in the UFC. I don't think it would have happened anywhere else. You know, the UFC basically is the sport of MMA. For me, it's something that's in the past. It's, by the time the fight comes around, it'll be 13 years since it happened. And honestly, we're two different fighters today. And I'm not thinking of it as a rematch, but a new match that I'm going out to win.
Has anybody else tried to get you to have this fight? I mean, I'm sure since then.
No one's actually tried. Strangely enough, a few people have thrown around the idea of Jeremy Horn rematch.
Yeah.
But even that was never professionally approached. It was just a couple of things on. But yeah, no, I've never been approached about this. No.
It's probably the most covered fight in Australian MMA history.
Well, it was yeah, the first fight that happened, and of course the controversial ending with the submission. You know.
That brings me to my next question.
Yes.
Can you wear protective eyewear in this fight?
I'll have to check with the UFC regulations to see if they allow any taping of the eyes. I may just tape over them.
So, jokes aside though, yep. The submission hold was a chin to the eyeball.
That is correct.
I mean, everybody who was at that event knows about. Is it illegal in the UFC rules? Or is
Absolutely. No. It is illegal because a few years later, Mark Kerr actually did that submission. And then I think it was Dan Bobish. It was Mark Kerr versus Dan Bobish. And I think because it comes down to an interpretation of the rules. It says no eye gouging. Yeah. It specifically doesn't say no eye gouging with the fingers. But if your interpretation is eye gouging requires the fingers, then it is a chin to the eye. My opinion is anything that goes into the eye is a gouge. And but at the time it was in the air, they didn't really understand. I think the rule which covers it is no ape-hitting, which means no putting any foreign objects into any parts of the body.
Yeah, sounds like they need that rule in prison. Now, the next question I have is, I mean, you talked about how you both changed as fighters. How do you think he's changed as a fighter, and how have you prepared for that?
Well, I mean, experience is probably the greatest thing. We've fought a lot more different events. I think we've added a lot more to our game. You know, of course, for myself, that was my first ever MMA fight. I'm not even close to the same person I was. First ever MMA show, second fight of the show. Yeah, I'm not even close. It's just things on changing and striking, understanding how to put grappling and striking together. Conditioning is just a whole different world where you understand what's involved in the sport, whereas back then we just did normal conditioning, whereas now there's a lot more specific MMA conditioning you can do. And I think Chris has become a lot more rounded. He's really worked on his striking game, which back then I don't believe it was very strong, but now, you know, as all MMA fighters are, they're dangerous in different areas. I'm sure he's worked on his submission game because he's a very strong wrestler. So he's going to, of course, have a better understanding of the guard and things like that, which he may not have been as well versed in back in the day.
How do you think, though, this is going to impact the Australian MMA scene in terms of, I mean, we don't have wrestling programs, we don't have, you know, boxing programs for kids, we don't have jiu-jitsu programs. Well, we do have jiu-jitsu programs for kids. That's the only thing we do have, I guess. How do you think this is going to affect us in the next year, 5 years, and 10 years?
Well, as I mentioned, it's always been about education. The fans and the people need to become educated to what's involved in the sport. And as you mentioned, there are not a lot of programs. There are wrestling programs for kids, and there are judo programs for kids, and there are jiu-jitsu programs. There are some gyms that do kickboxing programs. But as mentioned, they're very small because not a lot of families think that, you know, martial arts is necessarily what where to go with their child, they tend to all go into soccer programs and football and cricket programs. But I think with the exposure of the UFC, and people can see there's a career, there's a sport involved, there's skills and fitness involved, you'll see a lot more of the programs that already exist starting to expand, hopefully more programs for kids. I mean, that's one of my proudest parts of my gym, is watching these kids who come in with no skills, you know, and they learn jiu-jitsu. they learn their jiu-jitsu, they learn their wrestling, and you just watch them grow and improve, and you know, they learn self-discipline, they learn commitment, they learn respect, as well as all the physical skills that come with it.
That's my next question. This not related to the UFC particularly, but with the MMA has become popular now, right? So my question is that the criticism it gets is that the mixed martial arts as a martial arts style doesn't seem to teach the same things that judo and karate and the Eastern arts seem to. I mean, I believe it does, but how do we go talk up? How do you approach people who say, it's just beating people up, it's just this, it's not going to teach kids discipline and honor and all those sorts of things? How do you approach people when they say that?
Well, I mean, first of all, from my perspective, it's a lot easier because we actually do break it up into the traditional styles. Like, we still have our jiu-jitsu and our kickboxing, and we still bring that across into our mixed martial arts training. We require everyone to bow in at the start of class. We line up in rank. Of course, the rank in mixed martial arts is not a